together, and I learned something about gardening from him. And at some point in time, he decided to buy a peach tree. So we were all excited. He dug the hole, put the peach tree in, and it was in the springtime. So I remember standing there looking at this little skinny peach tree, waiting for the peaches. And there weren't any peaches. So I said, asked my father, where are the peaches? He said, be patient. Smiled. Next year, no peaches. The third year, little green things came out, but they didn't become full peaches. I was disappointed. But the fourth year, then there was like really nice the whole tree was laden with fruits. It took some time. That's the automatically. In due course of time is the automatically. By proper nourishment of the peach tree, it manifested peaches because there's a peach tree. So living entities, being part and parcel of Krishna, have a natural relationship with Krishna, and when acting in prescribed manner, following the vidhis and nishedhas of bhakti, then the do's and the don'ts, then naturally, or thus automatically, bhakti awakens, and when bhakti awakens, the other good qualities awaken. So again, you'll get a PDF in your inbox, our facilitator here, and then you can distribute it to the others to understand a very nice description from Bhurijan Prabhu of what this word automatically means. Now, in the path of devotional service, as I'm sure you've noticed, there's obstacles on the path of devotional service. And the obstacles under one heading is Maya. That is, although the innate attraction for Krishna is there, that innate attraction for Krishna is covered by Maya, and thus our relationship with Krishna is forgotten, and instead we see that which isn't in relation to Krishna. We think it's not in relation to Krishna. A fundamental definition in one of the 4 Chaturshloki verses of the Bhagavatam is this, in simple language. If you see something that appears to have value and substance and meaning and significance separate from Krishna, know that is my illusory potency. So there she is, Maya Devi, and she's got us covered, so to speak, and literally as well. In the center of that image, there's the presiding deities of the 3 modes, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, and they have us covered in different modes, and so there's varieties of coverings. As you see down the lower left corner, that's a living entity within a womb of a mother somewhere. And from the time of conception, from time immemorial, we're in that situation as long as we're in the material world. And the bhakti nature of the soul is misdirected. So now we're going to spend a little bit of time in taking a look at some of those non-bhakti or covered attitudes that cover or displace the natural bhakti. And here's an obvious one. The living entity is never set with whatever it is the living entity has at their disposal for senses and sense objects meeting and enjoying. It's never satisfied, and so there's an appetite for more and more and more. And greed is one of those qualities that spoils bhakti. And it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. Here's another one. It's not there's only one. Here's another one. Envy. And you can see the cartoon little drawing one is envious of the other, another is envious of the other. Whatever one has, the nature of envy is what somebody has, I wish I had. And then the other is thinking that somebody has, I wish I had, and that's the nature of envy. The nature of envy is rooted in our envy of Krishna, because what somebody has, where did it come from? That's something that somebody has. It came from Krishna. So if I'm envious towards someone, I'm envious towards Krishna, because Krishna is the source of what they have. And that's just only a small part of what Krishna has. But you're envious of somebody or something, you're envious of Krishna. Behind envy of another is envy of Krishna. So guess what? The way to get rid of envy is to restore our relationship with Krishna. Very simple. Easier said than done, because sometimes we find this. Envy is like a hungry demon with lots of sharp teeth which can eat away any positive qualities. There are two that have especially effective destruction of good qualities, because we're speaking of Vaishnava qualities or Vaisnava etiquette. And envy, if anyone has good qualities, envy will take them away. It's very insidious, envy. Say it again. If you have some good qualities, and amongst those good qualities, there's this quality of envy of others, your good qualities will disappear. They won't endure. Now, I was asked specifically to speak on this topic, so I'm going to do so. How to strive to be the best without harboring envy, and how to always appreciate Vaishnavas. So I'll say three things. One, Krishna Ekasharana. Good qualities will displace the bad qualities, and the good qualities is if you take exclusive shelter of Krishna. Krishna Eka Sharana. Because if you take shelter of Krishna, you're not going to be envious of Krishna. And you're not going to be envious of others because you're not envious of Krishna. And how to always appreciate Vaishnavas. Well, Vaishnavas are decorated with qualities. So you can appreciate, wow, Krishna is very kind to his devotees. They have this quality, or they have that ability, or someone can sing nicely, or someone can cook nicely, or someone can something. Krishna's given them this ability, and how wonderful is Krishna? That's one of three answers. The second answer, I'm just sharing with you, that in the past month, I've kind of made it like a vow. When people ask how to questions, I'm going to answer Sadhu Sangha. And then you can unpack Sadhu Sangha in so many ways, depending upon the time, place, circumstance, the person, etc. But you associate with those that are sadhus, and you can overcome anything that's negative, and you can awaken all things that are positive. Just by, because Sadhu Sangha means to serve. It's not just hang out. It's Sadhu Sangha means to serve. Those who are sadhus, that's what you do when you're with sadhus. And a third is offering obeisances. If there's a tendency to envy another, offer obeisances from your heart, not just the posture. There's a nice phrase, as you see in the upper right corner of that painting, Namanta Eva. Namanta Eva comes from Brahma's prayer, one of Brahma's prayers to Krishna. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva, that verse. And namanta eva means offering obeisances. I offer my obeisances unto one who has jnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva, who has given up the tendency to understand higher reality and higher truth through knowledge, and they've cast that aside. Instead, they take shelter of the topics of Krishna in the association of devotees. And that's the next one, Vaishnava Seva. This is the third response to the question you see at the top that I was asked to address. How to always appreciate Vaishnavas, serve them. And if you see some good quality, that's a good sign you should go serve them, because they somehow got mercy. And so if they are a recipient of Krishna's mercy, if you want to get Krishna's mercy, go serve them. It's an antidote to envy. And sometimes you may find yourself endowed with some capacity or ability or skill or something. And then there's a tendency for pride. So these two, I'm making note, pride and envy, both have the quality of destroying good qualities. I'll say it again. Pride and envy are very, very insidious. They have the quality, capacity of destroying all good qualities. Beware of pride. These are undesirable qualities, or they're coverings of the soul. And when you're holding on to pride, you can't take help from others. You're in a precarious situation. And keep going, and there's the whole anartha nivritti process, making the heart free from unwanted contaminations within the heart. And that can be a very sustained long-term business, getting on the other side of unwanted qualities, because they keep appearing, and then there's more. So it's a heart cleansing process, the bhakti process. There's a very nice teaching I like, so I'm going to share it with you. This is from Uddhava Gita. Krishna's speaking to Uddhava. I like the graphic. On the left side, you see a bird cage, and the cage door is open. And while the cage door is open, the bird is flying. The bird is flying toward Krishna. That's freedom from the bondage of material desire. Here's Uddhava Gita. It's Krishna. The author at the bottom, it says the Avadutta Brahman. It's Krishna speaking to Uddhava, referring to a conversation that this Avadutta Brahmana had with King Yadu. So rather than all the background, here's the verse. Really simple. Material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness, and freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. There's happiness and there's unhappiness. The greatest unhappiness is material desire. Material desire, really simple definition. Turn away from Krishna, you got material desire. Turn toward Krishna, you have spiritual desire. I remember hearing this many times as a young brahmachari, so it went in. When you look at the sun, what do you see? You see light. And when you turn your back to the sun, what do you see? Shadow. And Prabhupada would say there's not a third thing. So this greatest happiness is seeing the sun, facing Krishna, like the bird that's flying towards Krishna. That's freedom out of that bird cage from material desire. Material desire, one more time, is desire that's of the soul that's apart from Krishna. I'm going to elaborate a little bit. I hope you don't mind. One of the things that I've been doing since 2010, except for during the pandemic, is I've been visiting China. You been to China? How old are you? He's 12. He hasn't been to China yet. Someday. I started around that time, and I found, as I was traveling around, lots of people said that they were Buddhist. And I had some kind of an idea of what Buddhism is, because so many people were saying, I'm Buddhist, or that was my upbringing. I wanted to learn more about it. So here's some things that I learned. Many of you will know the answer to this question. The question is, according to Buddhism, the root cause of suffering is, fill in the blank. Desire. Who said that? I thought it was your 12-year-old son here. The root cause, so now you learned something. The root cause of suffering, according to Buddhism, the root cause of suffering, desire. If you want to become free from suffering, become free from desire. Not easy. So what's the method? Two things. I mean, keeping it really simple. One, live a life of goodness. Starting with compassion, nonviolence, charity, cleanliness, truthfulness. Mode of goodness, Bhagavad Gita, mode of goodness. They don't say Bhagavad Gita, but it's mode of goodness. That's the incubation chamber. And what goes inside the incubation chamber, part 2, is mindfulness. Or be in the moment. According to the teachings of Buddhism, past and future don't exist. Past doesn't exist anymore. Future doesn't exist yet. The only thing that exists is the moment. So be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. And when we become really good at being in the moment, what happens next? You go on the other side of the moment. What's that? Nirvana. That's the goal. Nirvana. What's nirvana? Cessation of material existence. Same. Material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness. In fact, it's the source of all unhappiness. It's the source of all suffering. But the alternative for Buddhism is nothingness. Because according to their understanding of nirvana, it's void. Shunyavadi. Now, hit the pause button, and now we're going to go to the Vedas. According to the Vedas, the root cause of suffering is, fill in the blank, ignorance. Listen to Prabhupada's lectures carefully, and you'll hear it again and again. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. And when ignorance influences the capacity to desire for the living entity, becomes ignorant desire. From ignorant desire comes ignorant activity, comes suffering. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. The solution? Knowledge. Knowledge destroys ignorance, just like light destroys darkness. Like that example, when you're facing the sun, you see light. When you turn your back to the sun, you see darkness. That's Maya. The absence of light is, the absence of Krishna is Maya. There is no absence of Krishna. Material desire is desiring separate from Krishna. Material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness, and freedom from such desire, not freedom from desire, but freedom from material desire, is the cause of the greatest happiness. And what's life like that's free from material desire. It's abundant spiritual desire. And what's spiritual desire? There's the bird flying to Krishna. That's what the Avadhuta Brahmana is relating to King Yadu, and Krishna's telling Uddhava about the whole story. Same understanding found in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, this verse 20 is part of a series where Krishna is describing to Arjuna the Ashtanga Yoga system, and he's describing the mature stage, the stage of Samadhi, where one sees the self by the pure mind and relishes and rejoices in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from miseries arising from material contact. Now, material contact happens. You stub your toe. Ouch. But to identify with that, it's mitigated by experiencing the happiness that's within. So you're still aware of the pain of stubbing your toe, but it's not the source of your happiness or distress. So, can we go back to that image? There we go. We have this kind of phrase in ISKCON, being in the world but not of the world. You've all heard that one before, I'm sure. Can we go back? Not in the world, but of the world.
That's from Jesus.
In the world, excuse me. In the world, but not of the world. So, there's material contact, but it's not misery. I'm going to tell a little Prabhupada story. It made a big impact on me, so I want to share it. During the time of the Krishna Balaram installation in Vrindavan, you're all familiar with that wonderful event. It was very, very meaningful to Prabhupada. He really, really, really wanted to have a place of worship for the devotees to go to in Vrindavan. And so finally, when the temple construction was completed, he personally presided over the installation of Krishna Balaram. And there's photographs of Prabhupada turning after offering the articles to Krishna Balaram, but you can't capture what the experience was in a photograph. My experience, it's embedded deeply in my mind. Prabhupada was radiating, literally, light and joy. With each article, it became more effulgent, and waves of joy were spreading through the temple room. Preceding that actual installation, it was the 3-day ceremony. In the main sunken portion of the Krishna Balaram temple was a yagya stala set up by the Goswamis of Vrindavan, overseen by Vishwambar Goswami. And so all the Goswamis of Vrindavan did it, so they couldn't complain it wasn't done properly. That was very smart. He had them do it. And while that was going on, Srila Prabhupada was conducting in the afternoons darshan in his room. I wasn't in his room, but I saw the consequence of what happened. When the darshan was over, the room was packed. Prabhupada stood up and started walking towards his room. Those of you that have been there, you can picture in your mind that low table where Prabhupada was seated. As he was walking towards his room, to the right There was a fireplace. Of course, there was no fire in that time of the year. But as he walked, somebody had some water, and they spilled water, and they hadn't cleaned it up. So his right ankle, hitting the patch of water, slipped, and he twisted his ankle. And he caught himself on the edge of the fireplace, and there was some, twist to his wrist. And I wasn't there, but I heard that Prabhupada was, on the one hand, completely detached from the body, on the other hand, to teach disciples a lesson, he became very angry for the purpose of teaching them a lesson. Who has done this? And everybody froze and said nothing. Somebody spilled water. And Prabhupada said some other things. I don't know what those other things were. Negligence, and this is, very careless. We shouldn't, even ordinary things that we do, we should be very careful, not careless. So I was told by Harisori, Prabhupada went to his room. He immediately requested some medicines. Basically, it was like spices and some leaves and some string. He made, with a mortar and pestle, he personally made a poultice and applied the poultice to his ankle and to his wrist, and then tied leaves, green leaves, with string to keep the poultice in place so the swelling would go down. He knew exactly what to do. And the next day was the installation. So I didn't know any of this until the next day, because after he did the arti, installing Krishna Balaram, he came into the temple room, sat on his Vyasasan, and his legs, normally they were folded under his dhoti, but there must have been pain, so it was distended a little bit, hanging down. And I saw because right in the front row, and I saw these leaves wrapped around his ankle, and leaves wrapped around his wrist, his right wrist. So I inquired, and that's how I learned what happened. He was certainly aware of the swelling, but he wasn't experiencing misery due to material contact. His consciousness was beyond the misery of material contact. There is a place, consciousness-wise, one is freed from all miseries arising from material contact. Where you're beyond that misery, you can detect it, and you do needful things, but it doesn't control you. Can you fix it again? So this is beyond Maya, beyond the influence and control. And it's not just your own body and your own senses, it's the world in which we live. Those who are in that Krishna conscious space or place, they see all objects as meant for Krishna service, because it comes from Krishna. So whatever it is, and wherever you are and whatever you're doing, that's the consciousness of good character, good conduct, respect for others, respect for nature, not envying others, and not abusing nature like greed and other things. That's the root, back to our original topic here, the primary characteristic of Vaisnava etiquette. Now comes the final big question. Is doing this, we're in the practice stage, we're not there yet stage. We belong to a club that has a certain name. I'm not there yet club. The sadhana club. So is it authentic to cultivate Vaishnava qualities even when you're not there yet? Now these days, there's a question from younger generation people, you're a newer generation, we're millennials, and, is this applicable, and how to make it applicable, and things like that. The principles are, the answer to this is, the principles are eternal. And the application may look a little different. It may sound a little different, but when it's principle-based, the authenticity of who we really are becomes awakened. It's natural to the soul. It's authentic to the soul. And according to our particular conditioned nature, we may apply ourselves to those principles in incremental degrees, in different languages, in different cultures, and so forth and so on. But it's certainly authentic. Just a little sharing. Here in America, it's, different ages and different ethnicities of people and how they apply it. A big one, of course, is millennials, but people from you're down there in Florida, and there are lots of Hispanic people in Florida for various reasons. So can Hispanic people take up Krishna consciousness as easily as anybody else, and what does it look like, and so on? In China, you might be interested to hear, they have this acronym KCCC, which stands for Krishna Consciousness with Chinese Characteristics. Because the culture, let's say the culture of respect, is part of their culture. The culture of charity is part of their culture. So how do you give that culture respect? It's Krishna consciousness with Chinese characteristics. That's authentic. It doesn't change Krishna consciousness by giving it Chinese characteristics, or because that's not the essence or the principle. The principle is the principle, and the detail is the detail. So, is there authenticity in cultivating a life of Vaishnava qualities? The answer is absolutely. It may look a little different here, a little different over there, but it's natural to the soul. All souls are going to meet in that same place of spiritual authenticity. And here's our final slide for this morning's discussion. Mahamantra. The entryway into this Krishna Eka Sharana and the Guru Padashraya, these two items that came up in the very beginning of the class. This is our primary access, our association with Krishna primarily, initially, and in the middle and in the end is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that's what we're doing in the association of devotees, trying to serve the devotees and become free from pride and envy and greed and other undesirable qualities by these primary characteristic methods. So now we're ready for some discussion. Oh, facilitator there in Orlando, take it away.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. People who have any comments or questions, please unmute yourself. I see Krishori Priya Mataji. I think you raised your hand. Please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranamam to Sri Prabhupada. My question was based on what you spoke about envy in the beginning when you were introducing the topic. So is Vaishnava Aparadh also a result of that envy? And if you could just kind of help us elucidate that process so that we understand it better, so we can check it before the offense is committed.
Could you move that? Yeah, thank you. Just let it flap down so I can hear the speaker better. So now let me repeat back your question. You want to hear something further about the root cause of envy so that we can check it at the beginning?
No, my question was whether envy is the cause of offenses to Vaishnava.
No. There's many. Turning away from Krishna is the root cause of our offenses to Vaishnavas, because Vaishnavas are representatives of Krishna. Bahir Mukha Jeev. Turning our mukha, away from Krishna, bahirmukha. And when we do that, then we're setting ourselves up for offense to that which is in relation to Krishna. Envy is just one of the factors involved following the root cause. And therefore, when you know the root cause, that's where you go. That's where you turn your attention to is the root cure. And one of the things to help in getting the root cure properly addressed, the medicine, is be wary of envy, because that's one of the manifestations of the root cause.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Rama Prabhu, I see you have some comments or question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Tanvat Pranam. What is the responsibility, or what does an aspiring devotee do even if he's not the subject of any envy? If he sees envious behavior, do we have a responsibility, or should we just ignore it and chant? What should we do is my question.
And my answer is it depends. It depends on your relationship with that person. It depends on your spiritual shakti, your spiritual strength and purity. Now, for example, one of the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta on this topic is, physician, heal thyself. Make your heart pure first as your first assignment and first function. If you see there's envy in others, look inside yourself and see, is that tendency inside myself? That's the reflex. When the physician is testing your reflexes, they put one knee over the other leg and tap and see if there's reflex. So that should be a reflex response when you see something like that. Is my heart like that too? And then after doing those things, those can happen very quickly. Depending upon your relationship with the person, depending upon your own spiritual capacity and your own spiritual purity, you look to the mood of service, with your mood of service in your heart. Is there something I can do to be of some assistance to this person or this situation? And if you don't have an answer, then you can keep asking the question. But it's best to not just do something because you feel you got to do something. Do something, whatever it is that you do should be in the mood of service, is my point. We'll say it negatively. Beware of the what one devotee calls the rescuer consciousness. You follow? Here's a problem. Let me go in and rescue the problem because I'm Mr. Rescuer. This other person has some malady. They've got an envy malady. So let me go fix their envy malady. So beware of that. And the antidote is service. What is appropriate according to relationship, according to my capacity, according to the things that are out there, the variables. What are my options for service? and maybe say something, and maybe say nothing, and maybe, go to somebody who that person looks up to, and, in the mood of service, share, not in the mood of tattletaling or fault-finding, but in the mood of service. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking about such a situation. And the real business is the well-being of the individual. And if we think about the well-being of the individual, then we're more likely to come up with something that's going to be of value or of benefit to the situation than if we're not thinking those ways. That is to say, Krishna will give you the intelligence. More likely if you're in the mood of service than if you're in the mood of the rescuer. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Brahmaji Prabhu. Dvaipan Prabhu, I see you raised your hand. Have a comment or question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dhanavad Pranam.
I see your hand there on the screen. It looks cool.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this wonderful class. From little experience, I would say, when we have a little bit of a far away relationship with devotees, I see the situations of, envy could be there, but it doesn't develop in a way. It's more of respect and acceptance of, yes, I need to do this so and so, Mataji or Prabhuji asked me to do this, I'll do that. But when we become too familiar with each other,
Yeah.
and it's something hard to avoid, of course, and that's when you seem to know, oh, I know, he doesn't know much, she doesn't know much, I can do it, like this. So this kind of habit develops towards responding to the person's personality. And when we do preaching, for example, with new Western people, they have deep respect for you as if you're the be all and all, how to serve you and all those things. And of course, after some time of preaching happens, then they become closer, which is unavoidable in many situations. And then we see the things start to develop of, becoming too familiar, and then the way we treat each other, and then not accepting things when we say it. And then, of course, the envy and everything else goes from there. So, is it good to keep in arm's length distance with devotees, to not have a situation occur like this and not have any tension at the end of the day?
I got the question. I was interested and amused with the way that you were depicting the question. It's business as usual in conditional life. Now, your question specifically is, should we, to avoid those circumstances, keep an arm's length? And my answer is, it depends. We don't enter where we're not invited to enter. And if we're invited to enter, we enter with respect, knowing it may come to pass, it happens, that by our involving ourselves with others, although from our side we're observing respect, the opposite of respect may, sometimes does, come from the other side. Familiarity breeds contempt. So rather than seeing here's somebody who I'm interacting with who is really my well-wisher, the Maya factor turns into here's somebody that has shortcomings. I'm not looking at my shortcomings, I'm looking at their shortcomings, and I start to have contempt for that person. It's just conditioned life. So we as devotees, we know that, and it does impact our relationships in ways that you described. Now, so what we need to do is model the standard of respect, respect on the spiritual platform, and respect of differences. Respecting differences. And respecting that somebody is going to have their ups and the downs. You know, the sine curve. And sometimes they're quite nice, and sometimes they're like, what happened to this person? So we just accept that the persons we interact with are going to have some of their ups and downs. And that's just part of what it means to be an emissary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's going to be there. And we just continue to respect. We can still continue to discriminate and, you know, be more cautious when somebody has higher ups and downs than others. And, you know, to proceed with guidance from Super Soul, but still respect. So then, so that my answer again is, it depends. But it's not so much stay away, but it's don't depart from respect, because respect keeps the distance. Or it's like deity worship. Those who are not brahmanas don't stand on the altar. They stand at a distance. But those that are brahmanas, they can't stand at a distance. They have to get right next to the deity. So how to protect one from making mistakes of taking for granted or taking as if material? If you're a brahmana and you're worshiping the deity, it's respect. That's a matter of the heart. So it's same principle in preaching. We know that there's risks. When we enter into that territory of extending Lord Chaitanya's mercy, there's risks. And we always maintain respect. Even if someone does their down instead of up position in the sine curve of their interactions with us, we're cautious. We're accepting what their condition is. And, you know, we modulate how much we extend depending upon the relationship and the person and all those other variables. Krishna gives the intelligence. From our side, we want to please him. We don't want to rescue somebody. We want to please Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Our moderator, do you want to help us?
No, I'm just looking to see if anybody else have any other questions here. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for patiently giving. These are very tricky questions. There is no easy, straight answers. Hard to implement. Also, it takes time to implement.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
A pure heart is necessary to even go one step at a time. So that's where our primary focus is, internal purity. And may we become instruments, ever better instruments of Lord Chaitanya in his mission. So thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.
Once again, thank you so much, Maharaj. Looking forward.
Maharaj ki jai.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
We have something online? Oh, not only online, in the room.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj,
Yes, you're
please accept my humble obeisances. I'll try to Srila Prabhupada. Quick question. I just loved the whole lecture you gave on Vaishnava etiquettes. One question that I have is, how do we determine, well, I have more than one question. How do we determine false ego versus real ego?
Easy. Krishna's at the center. Because when there's real ego, it's Krishna at the center. And if Krishna's not at the center, it's option B.
So then others may not be able to see that, right? They may
That's
seeing
okay.
false. Okay.
That's another
I'm just-
question.
okay. Another question I have is, for the desires, how do one... So this was a question, I think, from my kids that I'm going to ask you today.
Okay.
How do we switch the desire that they can be towards Krishna versus something else? Because this little one always says that, how do I make myself interested in Krishna? So he knows that he should be and he wants to, but then he just can't. So how do we...
Stay close to your mom. Because she's got it, and then you'll get it just by staying close to mom. The answer, that's the sadhu sangha answer. You know what that means, sadhu sangha? You know what sadhu means, right? Sadhu means devotee. Sadhu means one who's attached to sat, or attached to the eternal instead of the temporary. Attached to the eternal instead of the temporary. That's sadhu. And sangha means association. It's the summertime now. Supposing it's really hot. So what do? Pay attention.
Yes.
When it's really hot, get near a fan. Or turn on the air conditioning and you get cool. And if it's winter, stand near a fire, you get warm. So it's by association. You develop, you and me and all of us, we develop qualities like those with whom we associate. Qualities. What's a quality? Just like hot and cold is a quality, so attracted to Krishna is a quality. If you want attraction to Krishna, associate with those that have attraction to Krishna. And it becomes your quality. And then you do with those who have attraction to Krishna the things that they do. Like reading Krishna stories, taking Krishna prasadam. You like that one. And, young people almost everywhere like kirtans or do kirtan in the home. You get together with others that like kirtan. Haribol, that, yeah, that's it. Okay. So those are things that will, by sadhu sangha, by associating with devotees, you'll develop qualities like the devotees who have and the devotees are people who have attraction for Krishna.
What was the first day created? What was the first name for the...
I couldn't follow.
Say it again.
What is the
First day created.
first day created? So, like, which name was created first as a day?
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What was created first? That's what he's asking.
Which came first?
Yeah, which day?
Sunday.
Sunday, Monday, yeah.
Sunday. It's a detail, but without going into the detail, the position of the planets in our solar system determine the names of the week. It's in Sanskrit, it's in Latin, and it's in English. But it's the relative position of the planets in our solar system determines the names. The first is the sun. Sunday. Okay. You're a curious one, huh? Okay. Something else?
That's all.
Yes, we have something over here. You're online.
My question is, who was the actual audience of Lord Krishna when he was saying Bhagavad Gita in Kurukshetra? Was it Arjun?
Yeah.
Was it all the other
No.
devs?
No.
Because I heard when I was just
Uh-oh.
no, not that, but not that way. But I was reading and listening to this other sadhu's pravachan, when he mentioned that when Dev made a deal with Hanuman to come and be part of that Rath, that's why Arjun's Rath name is Kapidhwaj, where he was sitting on top of
Yes.
his Rath.
He was there.
His requirements like, Prabhu, I'll come with you, with Arjun, if you can tell me your katha. And Lord Krishna said, you know what, yeah, that we can make that happen. So I'm just thinking that deal was made earlier than Arjun. So who was the actual
Arjun.
Arjun? Okay.
Well, he is Krishna to Arjun, and Hanuman was hearing. Just like it was Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. And there was a whole audience hearing, including Sutta and so many others. But it's a conversation between those two.
Okay, thank you. Then my second topic is completely off the thing. So at my work, I was coming out of a meeting, and my background of my computer, because I was looking for Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, that shlok meaning. And my colleague, she asked me, what is this? And I told her, this is actually a shlok from Bhagavad Gita. And it's like, what's Bhagavad Gita? I told her, well, we're coming out of this meeting where we had this consultant. They presented what they can do and what they will do. So this is actually Lord Krishna presenting himself in front of Arjun, saying what he can do, what he will do. So is it like some kind of consultancy firm? Was that example proper?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, he was presenting himself during all the sloks, where what he can do and what he will do.
Yeah.
And then the time comes.
yeah. I mean, you're just spiritualizing what happened and relating to a friend. You're just sharing your Krishna consciousness. You're in the world, but your consciousness is with Krishna. So it's fantastic. And that's appropriate.
Okay.
And, what he's giving is not transcendental knowledge, the consultant, but he's following the same principle that's reflected in the material world that's of the spiritual world.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
mean, and in the case, the distinction is, in the case of Arjuna, he had already submitted, and you guys didn't submit to the consultant.
Yeah.
He's giving advice. This is what I can do for you. And that's a distinction, but there's a similarity along with the distinction.
Okay, that means then I probably described that properly through her, because
Yeah.
she never heard about this book. Or the
Oh,
Bhagavad
you
Gita.
did a good job. Fantastic.
Now that, was I successful in giving her one? Maybe not.
No, that's okay. It's a beginning. It's a beginning. It's a beginning. Just this morning, I got a letter, not a text message from somebody from China. And they had to practice on their way to work. They would distribute mantra cards. And somebody asked them, what's the meaning? And they were, in China, you're not supposed to say the God word. So she didn't. She said, it represents all 6 opulences. And the person went, oh, I like opulence. And so they recited the mantra after her, and who knows what happened after that. But that was, she said, was that cheating? I said, no, that's very clever. Prabhupada said like this with his book distribution: you find out what somebody's interested in, and you say, oh, that's explained very nicely in Bhagavad Gita, in these books. And it's not exaggeration, it's the transcendental feature of something that someone may have interest in materially. So it's just an interesting way of having worldly people connect with that which is otherworldly.
So basically, you just speak that language they didn't understand.
Yeah, exactly. You meet them where they're at. You say, something they can understand based upon where they're at. Just like, this little boy that's playing with a chain here. Say something that he can relate to, because his, perspective is different. And when he, gets in the office, it's going to be a different perspective.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Prabhupada ki jai. Anything from you? You're good? Okay.